Hello there, my friends. If you are struggling with burnout, if you're teetering on the edge of burnout, if you know somebody who's in burnout, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're a physician or not, what I'm going to cover today is the number one hack that's really going to make an incredible difference. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Gail Gazelle. I'm a former hospice doc, and I pivoted in my career over a decade ago to become one of the first coaches for physicians and other healthcare professionals. You may have seen my most recent book, which I'm going to be talking about today, Mindful MD, 6 Ways Mindfulness Restores Your Autonomy and Cures Healthcare Burnout. So if you're a physician listening to this, you're probably somewhere that you never thought you could get to in your career, right? You went through college, med school, residency, perhaps fellowship. You worked really hard to get where you are. If you're not a physician and you're listening to this, you may have worked equally hard to get where you are. And here you are, and yet you're struggling. And what does that mean for those of us in healthcare? Well, it means never-ending pressures. So much to get done. Patients, more patients added on to overbooked schedules. It means charts hanging over you. It means journals that you have to keep up with, an inbox that is ever full in this crazy digital age. It means an expectation that you're almost going to sacrifice your life to your career and just do more, work harder, squeeze more out of the lemons. And yet, you may be exhausted from all of it. Even if you're not in burnout, you may just be wondering, how can I continue to run this race? How can I continue to keep all these balls in the air? Not to mention your duties outside of work. Now, in addition to everything you have to do, what I'll call the external demands and pressures, let's face it, there's the internal world. Worry, fear, self-criticism, predictions, dire predictions, negative predictions about the future, rehearsing, planning, criticizing, telling yourself you should be a certain way or you should be doing a certain amount. That's the inner world that we all have to contend with, which can almost be like a soundtrack that's going on in our minds over and over and over. Well, what do I mean by that soundtrack? Well, I want to read to you something from the first way in my book, The 6 Ways That Mindfulness Restores Your Autonomy and Cures Healthcare Burnout. So I'm going to read from that first way. Recognize that you are not your thoughts. For Mira, the inner chatter started when her alarm buzzed at 5:15 in the morning, and it was anything but calm and friendly. When she didn't get out of bed to exercise, I'm such a slug. Why can't I have the self-discipline other physicians have? I've never had what it takes. When her 17-year-old daughter, Ella, wasn't getting her homework done, what am I going to do about her grades? Maybe I should get her a tutor, but tutors cost a lot and I need to save for college. My ex is making this so difficult. I can't believe he's resisting paying support once again. What an idiot I was to marry him in the first place. When her 13-year-old Dina yelled at Ella to stop snooping in her diary, why can't they get along the way my sister's kids do? The two of them are making my life miserable. I can't stand these mornings. They completely stress me out. When traffic was jammed on her way to work, why is everyone driving so slowly? I hate my commute. What was I thinking by moving to a practice so far away? Maybe I should quit and look for something closer to home. If I was only home more, Ella wouldn't be having all these problems at school. When she arrived late to her office, facing a difficult patient and another double-booked morning, it's completely unfair that I have to see all these patients. Now that it's all about patient satisfaction, this is what I have to put up with. I have the worst luck of anyone. I can't stand it when patients like her are on my schedule. I'll never get my charts done now. How am I ever going to get through another day like this? Not even 3 hours into her day, Mira already felt overwhelmed. And while it seemed clear to her that it was her daughters, her ex, her commute, and the office schedule to blame for her overwhelm, that was actually only a partial truth. Her life circumstances as a physician and single mom were complicated. It's no easy thing, raising teenagers, having a busy practice, and meeting the demands of an overbooked panel of patients, a daily juggling act that anyone would find stressful. But the difficulties of Mira's existence were multiplied by the soundtrack of thoughts that played in the background of her days. I don't know if you can relate to Mira. Many people can, whether they're physicians, whether they work in healthcare or not. It's just a little example of how busy the mind is. Thought upon thought upon thought. You can hear that in the soundtrack of Mira's inner world. And let's face it, we've got the external demands and we've got the internal demands. Which do we have more control over? In other words, if you are a physician and you're overworked and you're being told to do more, what parts of that do you have control over? Sadly, there is a lot that you do not have control over. So what really interests me is, well, what are the parts that you can control? And that's where realizing that you are not your thoughts becomes critically important. That's where realizing that you are not your thoughts is the number one hack, the number one intervention, the number one area where you can exert control to have a better quality of life, to slow things down, to ruminate less, to be kinder to yourself, to be less trapped in the vortex of negativity that the mind is so good at producing. I certainly know mine is, and I wonder about yours. So let's do a couple of things here. Let's take a pause here, and I'm going to time about a minute, and what I want you to do is count how many thoughts you have in that minute, okay? You can imagine you're like a cat at a mouse hole, ready to pounce every time a thought comes into your mind. So all you have to do for this 60 seconds of quiet is to simply count how many thoughts you have. So we'll begin now. That's 30 seconds. And that's 60 seconds. I'm curious how many thoughts you had, because when I do this exercise with groups of physicians that I speak to and lead workshops for, I hear anything from 5 to actually too many to count. And if you multiply that by how many minutes there are in an hour and how many minutes there are in your waking life of about 16 hours a day, it's an absolutely crazy number of thoughts. And what is thought anyway? Well, thoughts are simply transient mental events that arise in the landscape of the mind, float through the mind, and are no more. Really, when you stop and think about every thought you've ever had, has any one of them lasted? It may feel like it lasts forever and kind of haunts you, and you may repeat that thought over and over and over, i.e. rumination. And yet, no thought you have ever had actually lasts. They are all transient mental events. And that's really key to unpacking your own thoughts, to working with the part of this equation, the pressures and demands, the part of it that you can control. So what do we do? Well, I'm not here to tell you to banish thought. Oh, just don't have any thoughts, or this crazy idea that somehow meditation means not having thoughts. That is not the case. The mind's job is to produce thoughts. It's what all of our minds do. And that's a wonderful thing, of course, except that many of our thoughts are not helpful. Many of them are fake news. Many of them are reruns. Many of them are predictions, dire predictions of a future that will never occur. You know, I'll share one particularly unhelpful thought. You know, I've shared with you that Davi has a chronic illness, and he has to be on a medication that suppresses his immune system for Crohn's. That's the illness that he has, and he's been pretty public about it, so I'm not sharing anything confidential. I worried and worried and worried during the pandemic that when Davi got COVID, something really bad would happen. He'd be immunocompromised from the medication. He'd develop, horrible COVID. He'd be on a vent. Maybe he'd die. My mind got caught in a lot of those worries and fears. You know what? Davi got COVID, I think about a year ago. And he had the most mild case you could imagine. He had cold symptoms for about 36 hours. Within 2 days, 3 days, he tested negative. And on he went. But that's an example of an unhelpful thought that I got very preoccupied with as his mother. So what are we talking about then? Well, we're talking about observing the mind. That's something that Mira learned to do in our coaching. She learned to become the observer of her mind. That's what we're doing with meditation. That's what we're doing with mindfulness. We're becoming aware. And very important that we become aware of what our own mind is up to. That is what mindfulness is about. But it's not just to become aware, it's to become aware so that we can train the mind to be more of our ally than really our saboteur. We can become the master of our mind rather than the captive. To me, that's what's so exciting about mindfulness. And that's why I wrote the book, Mindful MD, 6 Ways Mindfulness Restores Your Autonomy and Cures Healthcare Burnout. And it's the first way that we're talking about today, recognizing that you are not your thoughts. So Mira began meditating. She became the observer of her own mind. Again, we're not trying to banish thought in meditation. We wouldn't be successful even if we tried. The mind is just too busy producing thought. But when we observe what the mind is up to and we see what's going on, we can really begin to diagnose in our own mind the helpful and unhelpful thoughts that populate our mind's horizon. So that's the first thing, is to become that observer. And by becoming the observer, we create a little bit of a very important gap, a gap between us and our thoughts. We realize that we are not our thoughts. Very importantly, though, it takes us to another step, which is beginning to recognize which of our thoughts are helpful and which are not. Because the key here is that we can train the mind not to attach quite so much to all the thoughts that it is so busy producing. We don't have to attach to them. We can see them arising. We can see them passing through our mind, and we can see them going away, much like the clouds in the sky. The thoughts arise, the thoughts drift through the mind, perhaps they morph a little bit like clouds do, and then they dissipate and are gone. So that's really the beauty here. That's the hack, is to become the observer of your own mind. One exercise that you can do in addition to meditating is to just keep track of your thoughts. Spend an hour tomorrow or tonight, whenever you're listening to this live, and get to know your own thoughts. Make a list of the unhelpful thoughts. You can make a list of the helpful one too, but I think it'll be more instructive to make a list of the unhelpful ones, because once you see it more clearly, you can actually laugh about it. Wow, when I looked back and realized how much time and mental energy and negative mental energy I spent worrying in that example that I gave about my son, it was really instructive for me that I didn't have to do that my mind was not a great predictor of what the future held. My mind was so fixated on this very dire outcome, as mothers can do and fathers too, but it really was so much unhelpful activity. And that was a real lesson for me. And I think you can hear that in the example of Mira as well. So, to summarize, this number one hack is to work on what you can control, what you can have autonomy over in a healthcare system that, of course, has taken away so much external autonomy. There's no question about that. Yet this is the autonomy that you can retain and you can grow. And it's very enriching. It's very revitalizing. It can help us step out of burnout to focus our energies on what we can control, which is how we relate to the thoughts our mind is so busy populating. So I really encourage you to try this. Become the observer. You can do that through meditation. You can also do that by simply keeping a log of the thoughts that go through your mind and putting a little U next to the unhelpful ones. And then practice letting them pass through without attaching to them in the same way. Mira did this, and she found it enormously helpful. Of course, she was still a single mom and a busy practice. None of that changed. But she was able to quiet her mind and all the thoughts within it that were bringing her down, that were adding unnecessary stress to her day. And that's what I want for you. So thank you so much for listening. We'll have another live next week where we talk about the second way that mindfulness can restore your autonomy and mitigate burnout. So stay tuned for that. And to your resilience, I really hope this can help you have many, many moments of calm and ease.